You walk into a shop with no plan to buy anything. You see a shelf full of watches, dozens of them. You glance for a moment and keep walking. Then you notice a small sign. Last one left. Suddenly, the watch looks different. You stop. You look again. You imagine someone else buying it. Now you want it. A moment earlier, you felt nothing. Now you feel pressure. Nothing about the watch changed. Only one thing changed: the chance of losing it. This reaction sits deep inside human psychology. People want what they cannot have. Scarcity creates desire. You see this everywhere, in relationships, status, marketing, negotiation, and power. The moment something becomes difficult to obtain, the brain assigns more value to it, even when nothing about the object, person, or opportunity improved. To understand why this happens, imagine a simple situation. A child sits in a room with two identical toys. Both toys sit within reach. The child picks one up and starts playing. Now place a small, clear barrier in front of the second toy. Suddenly, the child stops. Attention shifts. The toy behind the barrier becomes the focus. The child tries to reach it. Researchers repeated versions of this experiment many times. The result repeats. Children reach for the toy they cannot easily access. Adults behave the same way. Adults simply explain it differently. They say things like, "This one feels special. I prefer this one." Yet the trigger often sits in the same place: access, or lack of access. The human brain evolved in environments full of scarcity. Food ran out, opportunities disappeared, resources vanished. Missing a chance often meant losing an advantage. Because of this history, the brain built a simple rule: if something becomes scarce, increase attention. Scarcity signals value. The reaction happens quickly, often faster than rational thinking. Researchers once ran a simple experiment. They gave people jars of cookies. One jar held many cookies. Another jar held only a few. Participants rated the cookies in the nearly empty jar as more valuable. The cookies came from the same batch. Nothing changed except quantity. Yet the brain interpreted fewer cookies as a signal: important, limited, worth grabbing. This same rule drives behavior everywhere. Think about relationships. Someone shows strong interest in you. Messages arrive constantly. Attention never fades. At first, the attention feels good. After a while, something changes. The excitement weakens. The person becomes predictable. Now imagine the opposite. Someone shows interest, then disappears. Hours pass, maybe days. You begin asking questions. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? The lack of availability creates tension. Desire increases. Not because the person improved, because the brain fears losing access. Scarcity intensifies attention. Attention fuels desire. Desire turns into obsession. This pattern explains many social behaviors. Look at exclusive spaces, private members clubs, invitation-only events, limited guest lists. Restriction increases perceived value. When entry requires approval, people assume something important exists inside. The barrier creates attraction. Even people with little interest suddenly want access. If everyone walks freely into the same space, status disappears. Scarcity protects prestige. Luxury brands understand this well. They restrict supply. They create waiting lists. Customers wait months for products, sometimes longer. The waiting period becomes part of the experience. Scarcity increases the sense of reward when someone finally receives the item. Without the wait, the object loses psychological weight. The same rule drives limited sneaker releases. People queue overnight. Websites crash during launches. Collectors compete to secure something produced in small numbers. Ownership signals status. Scarcity created the meaning. Scarcity also changes imagination. When access disappears, the mind fills the gap with fantasy. Think about someone you liked but never dated. The relationship never happened. Because of this, the mind creates possibilities. You imagine perfect moments, conversations that never occurred, experiences that never happened. Reality contains flaws. Distance hides flaws. Scarcity plus imagination creates powerful attraction. You see the same pattern in celebrity culture. Celebrities remain distant from everyday life. Access stays restricted. Fans rarely meet them. Because of this distance, people project fantasies onto them. The celebrity becomes larger than reality. Mystery strengthens fascination. The moment exposure increases too much, the illusion weakens. Scarcity protects intrigue. The same rule explains mysteries. A story feels engaging because information stays hidden. The brain searches for answers. The moment the answer appears, tension disappears. Scarcity of knowledge creates curiosity. Now think about work. Two employees perform similar roles. One employee stays constantly available, always responsive, always ready. The second employee remains selective, sometimes busy, sometimes unavailable. Managers often perceive the second employee as more valuable. Availability influences perceived importance. Constant access lowers perceived demand. Limited access increases perceived demand. Scarcity acts as a signal. The brain assumes others compete for the same resource. If others compete, the resource must matter. You see the same thing online. Some people post constantly on social media, photos every day, stories every hour. Followers begin ignoring them. Nothing feels rare. Now imagine someone who posts rarely. Each post attracts attention. Scarcity increases engagement, but scarcity has a darker side. Once someone understands this trigger, they can use it to manipulate people. A common tactic uses emotional scarcity. Someone gives affection, then removes it, then returns again. Warmth appears, warmth disappears. This pattern creates confusion. The brain tries to restore stability. The person receiving the attention begins chasing approval. Because access feels uncertain, desire grows stronger. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. Rewards appear unpredictably. This pattern creates strong behavioral attachment. Casinos use the same principle. Slot machines deliver rewards randomly. Players never know when the next win arrives. Because of this uncertainty, people keep playing. The unpredictability strengthens the urge to continue. The same dynamic appears in certain relationships. Attention appears, attention disappears. The brain chases the reward. Scarcity keeps the cycle alive. Scarcity also shapes negotiation. Imagine a job interview. A candidate appears desperate for the role. The employer senses unlimited availability. Leverage disappears. Now imagine the candidate mentions other opportunities. Scarcity appears. The employer fears losing access to the candidate. The balance shifts. Scarcity creates demand. Demand creates power. Even ideas follow this rule. When an idea appears rare or unusual, people pay closer attention. Scarcity increases curiosity. Yet, an important truth sits underneath all of this. Scarcity does not create real value. Scarcity creates perceived value. The object remains the same. Only perception changes. When the brain believes something might disappear, motivation increases. This explains why people chase people who reject them. Rejection creates distance. Distance creates scarcity. Scarcity increases attention. Attention fuels obsession. The rejecting person becomes the focus. Sometimes attraction grows stronger after rejection than before. The brain interprets rejection as a signal. Something valuable exists here. The same reaction explains forbidden things. When something becomes off-limits, curiosity grows. Restriction strengthens fascination. History shows this clearly. Banned books become popular. Censored ideas spread faster. When access becomes difficult, the brain assumes importance. Scarcity magnifies interest. Yet the most interesting part sits in perception. People believe they choose freely, yet many decisions follow invisible triggers. Scarcity acts as one of the strongest. When an opportunity feels limited, rational thinking fades. Emotion takes control. Urgency replaces evaluation. People rush decisions. Later, they justify them with logic. Understanding this pattern changes how you see everyday situations. You start noticing countdown timers on websites, limited stock messages, exclusive invitations, limited drops online. Each tactic activates the same psychological switch. Scarcity increases desire, desire increases action, yet awareness creates power. The moment you recognize scarcity pressure, you pause. You ask a simple question. Would I want this if it were always available? This question reveals the difference between real value and scarcity-driven desire. If the answer changes, scarcity influences the decision. The same awareness applies to relationships. When someone becomes distant, attraction sometimes increases. Yet the attraction often comes from uncertainty, not compatibility. Scarcity triggered the response. Scarcity will always influence human behavior. The brain evolved to treat limited resources as urgent. That instinct helped humans survive. Today, the same instinct shapes modern life. Marketing, social dynamics, status, romantic attraction, negotiation, even attention online. Scarcity sits quietly behind all of them, yet the most powerful insight appears here. The brain often confuses rarity with value. Something rare appears valuable. Yet rarity alone does not create importance. Sometimes the brain chases something simply because access feels uncertain. Once the opportunity becomes available again, desire fades. You see this when someone finally gets the thing they chased for months. The excitement disappears quickly. The object did not change. The chase ended. Scarcity disappeared. And with it, much of the desire. This reveals something deeper about human behavior. People often chase the feeling of winning access. Scarcity creates the game. The brain wants to win. Remove the game and the motivation weakens. Once you see this pattern, the world makes more sense. Why distant people seem attractive. Why luxury brands restrict supply. Why limited offers drive sales. Why forbidden things attract curiosity. Scarcity drives desire. Desire drives action. And the moment access disappears, the brain suddenly decides something matters more than it did before. Not because the object changed, but because the mind hates losing something before it even had the chance to own it. And once you understand this rule, you start seeing something clearly. When people want what they cannot have, the desire often reveals more about the barrier than the thing itself.